Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to North East Water's community webinar series. In today's webinar, we will explore a topic that I'm very passionate about, our carbon reduction initiatives here at North East Water. My name is Jo Murdoch, and I'm the Managing Director of North East Water, and I'm delighted to have you with us today. North East Water acknowledges the traditional owners of the lands and waters on which we operate and are meeting today. We pay our respects to elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people joining us today in this webinar. Now, before we get started, I would like to go over a few housekeeping items so that we have a smooth session. Please note that all our audience members have their cameras and microphones switched off for this webinar. This webinar is being recorded and will be available via our website after the session. We'll also send you a link to access the recording so you can share it with others, and I really do encourage you to do so. And we encourage you to ask questions. You can submit your questions anytime by using the Q&A function on this webinar, and we'll address as many questions as possible during the Q&A segment following the presentation. Now, before we dive into our main topic, I'd like to give you a brief overview of North East Water and what we do. Essentially, North East Water plans for and provides critical water and sewerage services to 39 towns across a 20,000 square kilometre region. We serve over 120,000 people, ensuring that they have access to high quality, clean and safe drinking water. We operate 21 water treatment plants and 22 wastewater treatment plants, and our extensive pipe network includes 1,300 kilometres of sewer mains and 1,800 kilometres of water mains. North East Water's assets are valued at $1.6 billion, and we are committed to investing in and maintaining our infrastructure to meet current and future needs. And you may know that we have one of the lowest water bills in Victoria and across the nation. Our average residential water bill in 2024-25 is about $1,040 per year, $1,040 per year. North East Water is committed to strong climate action, circular economy opportunities, and environmental stewardship. Reducing our carbon footprint is fundamental to this. And we are committed to using 100% renewable energy from July 1, 2025 and net zero emissions by 2035. And we're going to deep dive on this as part of this webinar, so stay tuned. And finally, we are very proud to have 208 local employees who all provide exceptional services and support to our communities. They're highly skilled and experienced professionals across a wide range of critical roles, including water quality and environmental specialists, planners, engineers, property and land use experts, digital and cyber security specialists, water and wastewater treatment operators in the field, many with specialised trades, customer service staff, accountants, engagement experts, and many, many more. It's such a great place to work for diverse career opportunities. Now, following a year of extensive engagement with customers and key stakeholders across our region, North East Water was very proud to launch earlier this year our new corporate strategy. Strategy 2040 articulates our vision for the future, a future where we proactively foster a healthy environment, thriving communities and a prosperous region. The strategy clearly defines our purpose to deliver safe, sustainable water and wastewater solutions for our communities. That is our core business, and that's what we do each and every day of the year. Strategy 2040 is a direct response to the significant challenges that North East Water and our region is facing in relation to climate change, population growth, rapid technology advancement, and evolving customer and community expectations about the services that our customers want to see. Our Strategy 2040 approach focuses on ensuring a secure water future. That is absolutely paramount. It also focuses on transforming waste into valuable resources. It focuses on valuing First Nations people, our customers and our employees, and delivering services that are fair, accessible and affordable. So we envisage a future where technology and data-driven innovation enhances service delivery, where partnerships, collaboration, and inclusive engagement leads to positive outcomes. And it's a future where we're continuously scanning the horizon to stay ahead of trends and emerging issues, leveraging our services and infrastructure to support the prosperity of the region. Pre-Strategy 2040, we recognised when we were developing Strategy 2040, we recognised the importance and the interconnectivity of the three elements of our vision: healthy environment, thriving communities, and prosperous region. And through that, we understand and we recognise that without a healthy environment, we won't have thriving communities and a prosperous region. That's why I'm really excited for us to be sharing with you North East Water's carbon reduction initiatives and our renewable roadmap. So thank you again for joining us today. And it now gives me great pleasure to introduce my fellow presenter, John Day, who is our General Manager of Environment, Systems and Operations.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, everybody, for joining in today on this, what is a very exciting space for us, while at the same time making our business very sustainable. As Joe pointed out, we'll talk a lot today about our renewable roadmap going forward. Where it aligns with what Joe just touched on with Strategy 2040 is under our healthy environment. North East Water is committed to strong climate action and circular economy and environmental stewardship. So 4 key pillars to that are under smaller footprint. So North East Water is a carbon neutral and continuously looking to sustainable practices. Climate action, North East Water is a leader in climate mitigation and adapting to climate change. And I won't talk about what we call the CARP plan, our Climate Adaptation and Resilience Plan. That's another piece of work. Today, we're really talking about mitigation. And sustainable practices around wastewater and our byproducts have a reuse value and significant reducing costs and environmental impact. Certainly, traditionally, our business has been seen as managing waste, but now we're looking more around recycling and recovery, that everything, and not everything is waste, that everything actually has a purpose. And ultimately, that leads to alternative water solutions and what we can do with our water. Next slide, please, Luke. Over the last 2 to 3 years, we've been working on a renewable roadmap to meet our emissions obligations and also our ambitions of being 100% electrically generated by renewables by 2025. So June 2025 next year, all of our sites will be supplied by renewable energy. And that's a significant amount of energy. So we're talking around about anything up to 4 to 5 megawatts of power to supply to our plants per day. So it's a lot of energy that we use in our sites. And also aiming to be net zero emissions by 2035. So what does that look like? On the next slide, it breaks it down into Scope 1 emissions, Scope 2 emissions, and Scope 3 emissions. Now, Scope 1 emissions are direct. So if you think about what we do as a business in managing waste and human waste, we generate quite a few emissions out of our day-to-day operations of a wastewater treatment plant. Things like nitrous oxide, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, all come from wastewater treatment plants. Scope 2, and we'll talk about today, so that is the renewable energy side of the business. So Scope 1, we can reduce our emissions by either covering or engineering out that emissions release. Scope 1 is all around renewable energy. Scope 3, which is, you'll hear more and more about that, is really around the supply chain management of that. So that's something that we measure and we focus on, but really what I'll talk about today is Scope 1 and Scope 2. How do you achieve becoming 100% renewable energy and net zero by 2035? You don't do it by doing one project. But what you actually do is look across, and what we did is to look across our whole business and look at our big emitters, our big users of energy, and aim for those first. And you can't do it just by one project. You have to do it over several, if you like, a basket full of apples. So having choices as things change, because as everyone will know, the energy market alone is a significant changing landscape in Australia at the moment, and I'll go into that a little bit further. But you need other opportunities. So you need things around biogas, which I'll talk about, biochar, which is an opportunity. You need to look at offsetting, so planting trees in some cases to offset those emissions that you can't engineer out. Also, in this case on our suite of portfolios is wind. So this area in the northeast isn't an area that we could put a wind turbine up. There isn't the wind to generate power from a wind turbine. So what we do is we collaborate with others to buy wind energy from other retailers outside of our area, and in our case, out of Ararat. So next slide, Luke. So thinking about that bigger picture, where's our big emitters? And West Wodonga, which is our wastewater treatment plant that treats all the waste from Wodonga, Barnawartha, Barranduda, and associated areas, all comes to our West Wodonga resource recovery hub. That site is around 42% of our total emissions, so it makes sense to focus on that site first. What have we done at that site? So to meet our 100% renewable energy, you can see in that photo on the top left-hand side, we've installed 3 megawatts of solar power. That's solar that actually follows the sun during the day. So we're generating power from that plant for as soon as the sun is up, so around about 5:30 in the morning to, especially in this time of the year when we're in daylight savings, as late as 8:30 at night. The other photo that you see there is the biomethane plant that we're currently building at West Wodonga, and we've had already just done a podcast. You go onto our website and have a look at that podcast around our West Wodonga site. But that will be up and running, generating biomethane, so basically capturing the waste that comes into the plant from large trade waste customers. We then cover that waste, we collect the methane, which then generates power. And so during the day, we run off the solar, and at night, we swap over and run off the gas or the biomethane at night. So automatically through that, I've reduced my Scope 1 emissions by covering and capturing the gas, and I've reduced my Scope 2 emissions by generating my own electricity. That site has also then built us resilience, that if we were to lose power to that site, I can simply switch over to disconnect myself from the grid and run from the solar during the day and then switch off and run through the biogas at night. So you're not only mitigating, but you're also setting yourself up to be more resilient to the extremes of climate weather. The other part at the bottom there is another piece to the puzzle, and today was the ground turning of the sod at the AGIG plant, so the hydrogen plant. Now, why is that important to us and why on our site? So that'll be built to the top part of our site next to where those biomethane plant is. And what that will create is we're able to generate, they will generate as a byproduct oxygen. That oxygen can then be used in our plant. Our plant, majority of our power that is actually used at our site is through oxygen and generation of oxygen to keep our bugs and our processes moving and alive. So by simply using that waste product from the hydrogen plant, we're then able to reduce our energy consumption. That means that I can then put more energy back into the grid and use at other sites. So co-locating with customers and major trade waste customers like that, we'll also supply them with recycled water to make that hydrogen, and ultimately that will create green hydrogen and at the same time create a great circular economy outcome for this site. Next slide, please, Luke. So what does that look like on a forecast of how we're travelling across that? So you can see since the West Wodonga solar came online, we're now already tracking downwards. That top line is where we would actually be if we did nothing. And you can see it actually starts to increase. So as there's more and more customers connecting to our system, there's more and more production of Scope 1, Scope 2 emissions. So it will never just be solved by a greening of the grid, if you like. So by bringing on that solar power by 2025, or it's been up and running for a year and a half now, it's generating large-scale certificates, which we then offset, and if you like, sets out any energy that we put back into the grid as green power by offsetting fossil fuels. You can see there by 2025 is when the biomethane plant will then come on. So that's the next drop you see down to 10,000 tonnes of CO2 a year. You'll then see another drop around about the 28, 29, and that's a project that will be going in for offsetting trees and a carbon sequestration project that we hope to be going in with VicWater. So that's with the 17 water corporations across Victoria, all investing into a large carbon sequestration project that improves not only North East Water's carbon emissions, but also the other 17 water corporations. And then the final drop you'll see before 2035, which will be around biochar, more biomethane and offsetting. So, and that's more projects which I'll talk about. So next slide, Luke. So the West Wodonga Solar, so sorry, Luke, but I'll just get you to click through a couple of the arrows here. So the solar's obviously going into the plant. It also, that top arrow that goes into the grid, and also has an opportunity to, with the surplus energy that we provide from that site, going back to the grid to other sites, that we are looking now at what would a battery look like on that site to store energy as well as opportunities around if the battery's there that we could also, given that that site, as everyone would know, is next to the Hume Highway, what if we also put a recharging centre there? So it provides quite a lot of opportunities around not just power that we could use, but what power could we use with the community and help the community become more greener or more renewable. You can see in that bottom graph that I've got down there, that shows you where we're importing is the blue bars, and you can see that as soon as the sun starts to come up around about that 6:30, and this was in the middle of winter, so it's usually the best to show because people say, well, that's great in summer, but what about winter? So this is on a cloud-covered day. This is in the middle of winter. You can see that we're still generating from around about that 6 o'clock till about 5:30 at night. And that excess is then going back into the grid to be used at other sites. Now, if we go to the next slide, Luke, you can see that Corkins Road, that is West Wodonga, that is totally eliminated now. And that excess, which we're using about 500,000 kilowatts to generate into the site behind the meter, and then around about 2.5 megawatts, goes back into the grid that's then used at all of our other sites. So our next one's Mill Street, Faithful Street, but you can see why in that graph, why we looked at West Wodonga as the big one. But it's not just about West Wodonga. There is also other benefits like our solar and energy storage at Walwa and at Yakandanda that run both water treatment plants at that site. So when the sun comes up, it generates power into the battery. The battery then is full. It says, I'm ready to run, and it starts the water treatment plant. The water treatment plant runs, fills up a big clear water storage, and if you like, that's energy storage in its own. So then the town is supplied off that water storage. The sun goes down, the plant shuts down, we run off the storage, and we wait again for the next day. Those are really good examples of, and the reason why we did both of those sites is because they're both exposed to fire and the impacts of fire and losing energy to those towns. So we are fully sustainable if there is a fire. And in fact, during Yakandanda during the 2020 fires was a great opportunity to learn around what about all the smoke cover, and we were still had enough energy to generate and run that plant even with that thick smoke. So that just shows you how efficient solar panels are nowadays. We also have the Beechworth wastewater treatment upgrade and the Bright wastewater treatment upgrade, which will, by changing over from lagoon-based systems to a mechanical-based system similar to West Wodonga, will reduce our emissions anything up to 2,000 tonnes per year just by changing the design and the way we run those wastewater treatment plants. So it's not just all about solar energy, it's also about the way that we can capture those emissions. Instead of planting trees, we should be first trying to remove those emissions. Next slide. So biomethane, why is biomethane such a great thing? So, and again, Luke, I'll just get you to click through the arrows here. So with the biomethane, we can either generate energy to go back into the plant, as I said, at night. We can also capture that biomethane into trailers, and that's just a little small tube trailer system that can be then parked next to a generator, and we can run a generator off the biomethane gas that we're generating at site. That will also generate Australian carbon credit units or certificates that I can then surrender against my emissions. So you can also use that gas in industry. So we could put that into bigger tankers and then put those on site so other people can use. Or, and if you click the button one more time, Luke, I think another arrow will pop up. We could actually put that biomethane back into the gas grid. That would then offset fossil fuels, which are then generates Australian carbon credit units again, which we can surrender against our emissions. So you can see that that whole biomethane plant isn't just about electricity, it's also about other opportunities that can open up to us in what is a very volatile market, as you would understand, with the natural gas market at the moment. And this wouldn't be made available unless we did this work with AGIG, because they've put a gas gate on the grid next to our plant. With their hydrogen plant, we can utilise that to put gas back into the grid. Next slide. And so biomethane into the grid and behind the meter generation is the project we're currently working on. Biochar, and I haven't touched much on biochar today, but basically we're going to take our biosolids, and we've already started a trial. That machine you see there is in Melbourne at the moment, putting our biosolids through with green waste from councils, and we're trialling at the moment to make a beneficial product in biochar that can be used in soil. It can also be used for removing algae out of water. It has multiple applications for us, and again creates that circular economy, but it also has the ability to generate, again, Australian carbon credit units to offset against our emissions. And plant upgrades, as I mentioned before, also reduces our emissions. Just that Beechworth is a minimum around about 500 tonnes per year equivalent of reduction, just by changing the style of wastewater treatment plant. And that technology is changing and evolving all the time. In fact, I've never seen the amount of change that's currently going on in the industry around the different types of treatment processes to now take into consideration around reducing emissions that really in the past was about treatment. Now it's really around emissions and treatment. And obviously the Vic Water Carbon Sequestration Project, that's a great project where it's not just doing it before the North East, but on behalf of the state. So next slide, Luke. So again, just finishing off on the current tracking, how are we tracking? That's where we are sitting at the moment, and you can see that we're well on track to first be totally renewable energy by 2025 and be net zero emissions by 2035. So these are great projects, and certainly I'm very proud of the organisation and the corporation of where we've come to so far to meet our obligations and our ambitions around climate change. I'll hand back to Jo.
Thank you. Thanks, John. Thanks for that really fabulous presentation about our renewable roadmap. I'm now going to open it up the floor for questions. And if anybody who's listening might like to put their question in the Q&A function, I can read that out. I see we already have one. John, I'm just going to open up the batting though, and just say, how exciting is it to think about the Wodonga wastewater treatment plant as a resource recovery hub? Because when I look at all the look at all the emissions reduction opportunities, the circular economy opportunities, and the partnership opportunities, it really is going to be a site of national significance.
Yeah, and it's what's interesting in there, Jo, is that, you know, I don't even touch about alternative water sources, but we treat up water at that West Wodonga site that is Class A equivalent, that then goes back into the Murray River, that when we extract further down, we have a thing called return flow credits. We actually change what water we put in, and what water we extract is changed out in a return flow credit system. So, you know, the biochar, the energy, everything in that site is used now. So it has gone from what was a wastewater treatment plant to a resource recovery hub. So nothing is wasted on that side.
Yeah, terrific. And a bit of a shout out to our industry customers and partners in terms of Mars, Pet Care, Wodonga Rendering. And I know today as you said, they turned the first sod for what is Australia's largest hydrogen renewable gas facility at next door to our wastewater treatment plant. So that's very exciting. Now, we do have a couple of questions and we've got a few moments. So Eddie has asked, is this carbon reduction expensive and how much does it cost customers? Really great question. Now, John, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, look, and it's a great question, because I think it gets confused around all this renewable conversation around the cost and, recycling and lots of other things around renewables. But the reality is that 3 megawatt system that we've now installed in West Wodonga is saving us around $1.5 million a year that we would have paid for electricity. So that means that within 7 years, that installation has paid for itself. The site itself will last for 20 years and then the panels would be recycled. And recycling in panels has become a very commonplace now. So we would then replace those panels and go again. So another 20 years. Because the tracking system we've got there has a lifespan of around about 40 years, we could at least get 40 to 50 years out of that. So it's not costing the business money, it's actually saving the business money by actually producing our own energy.
I just want to just expand on that, John, around the biochar, because you mentioned that earlier, and biochar production is turning waste that we currently have, our biosolids, and we've got many tons of that sitting to find a valuable reuse for, and that will ideally turn that into a valuable product.
Yeah, and as I touched on before, Jo, it's taking what has traditionally been a waste that we have been using on soils, but now with the introduction of things like PFAS measurement, microplastics, all of these risks around what was in biosolids can be eliminated by pyrolyzing it. So basically heating and cooking that product, which breaks the chains of those byproducts. That then makes a product that we can put back into the soil, which is pure, absolutely safe to go back in, low risk, or I can never say no risk, but low risk reuse product that will not only improve the soil by retaining water into the soil in what is a country that's very dependent on rain, but at the same time generates Australian carbon credit units, as I mentioned before, by capturing carbon.
Yeah, thanks, John. Now, I do have another question for you, John. It's from Jamie. Are you confident North East Water will make the net zero emissions target by 2035?
Yeah, really super confident. John Moxey, who does all of the work for us, and he's amazing in our business. So he does all the calculations and setting up and running these projects, and a big shout out to John. But already he's calculated that we're meeting that obligation as we speak now around renewable energy. So we'll meet the renewable energy target by 2025 easy next year, by June next year. The 2035 net zero is, it's a challenge, but it's not surmountable. We've already got enough projects in there to meet it. I think the challenge, Jo, will be making sure that those projects, like the renewable energy project, return on the investment, that they make sense and are sustainable. And I think that's going to be the challenge. And I think the projects we've picked so far are actually achieving that.
Yeah, thanks, John. And actually, that just answers another question we have in there around, have there been any major challenges in reducing North East Water's carbon footprint? So I think that's great. I might just ask one other question if I can. We talked a bit about industry partners. I just wonder whether you could talk a little bit about what we're actually doing with those industry partners.
Yeah, look, none of this would be available if we didn't have the luxury of that trade waste pipe from Master Foods and the Mars Corporation and from Wodonga Rendering, and a great piece of work that we've worked over the last 5 years around this project and the biomethane project, and they have been a big partner in that. Wangaratta Council, big call out to them around the work we've been doing with biochar and using green waste to mix with our biosolids to make the biochar product that we want to do. And ultimately, this will open up that we could take all of the northeast region green waste that's currently sort of underutilized into a product that's, at best could be used on gardens to something that's more beneficial with a biochar product. So, we can't do that without those partners who have been really invaluable to us.
Fantastic. Well, we're out of time, John. I just want to say thank you to you and your teams and everybody at North East Water who is involved in our carbon reduction initiatives. And thanks to everybody for your questions. Now, before we conclude, your feedback is really important to us and will help us improve for future webinars. Can I ask that you take a moment to complete a short survey by using your phone to click on the QR code, which is on your screen now, or via a link that we will include in an email that we'll send to you very shortly, which will also have a link of today's recording. Now, you can stay informed about all things North East Water via our Have Your Say website, which is haveyoursay.newater.com.au. And if you have further questions or need more information about anything that you've heard today or learned today, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. So thank you to everyone for attending today's webinar. We hope you found the session informative and exciting, which I think it really is. And we look forward to seeing you at our future webinars. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Bye.